What if I told you that in 2026, the U.S. military fought this major conflict using, essentially 50-year-old jets that were, well, they were supposed to be sitting in scrapyards.
Yeah.
And while that's happening, a totally ghost-like financial entity used that exact same war to just print $1 billion in a matter of minutes.
Right. It's the absolute definition of a structural disconnect.
Oh.
We're examining a landscape today that is deeply fractured into, well, really three distinct layers. You have the physical reality on the ground, the public political narrative that's just kind of floating above it, and then this hidden digital reality operating entirely in the financial shadows.
And we have a massive stack of sources to help us unpack this today. Welcome to today's deep dive, by the way. We are pulling from, official military fact sheets, really intense financial forensic reports, some market microstructure analysis from a Substack called Wrong Side of Book, and, geopolitical journalism surrounding the 2026 U.S.-Israel war on Iran.
Yeah, it's a lot of material.
It is. But our mission today is really to explore how massive geopolitical events generate these chaotic realities on the ground, and then how anonymous actors use institutional trading infrastructure to perfectly monetize that chaos.
Exactly. The overarching theme here is information. So how information is suppressed in one arena only to be, aggressively exploited in another.
Right. Now, before we jump into the data, I do need to make a really quick but, crucial note. Our sources today contain some highly politically charged claims involving the U.S. administration, Iran, international conflict in general.
Right.
And we want to be explicitly clear that we are not taking sides or endorsing any political viewpoints here, left, right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We are just impartially analyzing the raw data, the market mechanics, and the contradictions that are documented in the source material. We're just reading the structural reality.
And that structural reality is, well, it's full of paradoxes, particularly when you look at the actual hardware being deployed.
Okay, let's unpack this because, if you look at the public face of global defense in 2026, the poster child is undoubtedly the F-35 program.
Oh, absolutely.
According to the official May 2026 Fast Facts sheet, the statistics are just staggering. We're talking about a fifth-generation stealth fighter with over 1,330 deliveries, over 1 million flight hours, 20 participating nations, and they're operating out of 39 bases and ships worldwide.
Yeah, that's the official brochure, right? It presents this image of overwhelming, untouchable 21st century dominance, just a perfectly integrated web of allied air power.
It really reads like the ultimate global group project. I mean, just looking at the operational deployment pattern from, say, April 2026 alone, you see permanently assigned U.S. Air Force F-35As arriving in Misawa, Japan.
Right.
You have Finland stepping up to produce fuselages, with a Finnish pilot taking their first flight. You even have a Chilean KC-135, aerially refueling U.S. Air Force F-35s for the very first time. Yeah, the level of synchronization across these defense alliances is incredible. It really paints a picture of a military that is, technologically light years ahead of any adversary.
It does. But what's fascinating here is that if you actually pull the forensic intelligence reports from the 2026 conflict in Iran, that polished brochure goes completely out the window.
Really?
Yeah. If you cross-reference the PRCM intelligence reports, you see a jarring operational reality. The U.S. is fighting this 2026 war primarily with Cold War-era hardware.
Wait, hold on. Why? I mean, we just said we have 1,300 state-of-the-art F-35s buzzing around the globe with all these international allies. Why on earth are we benching the multi-million-dollar stealth jets and sending 40-year-old planes into a hot zone? Is it a supply chain issue, or are the F-35s just not suited for this specific type of combat?
Well, the sources point to a profound readiness and a structural crisis that the military is actively trying to manage behind the scenes.
Okay.
The A-10 Warhogs that were operating over Iran, they are 43 to 50 years old.
Well,
yeah. They were actually scheduled for mandatory retirement before this war reversed the decision. I mean, the last class of A-10 pilots literally graduated the exact same day, and A-10 was lost in this conflict.
that is wild.
And the F-15E Strike Eagles, which took heavy fire, they are 35 to 38 years old.
I mean, that feels incredibly fragile for a major global superpower in the middle of a hot conflict.
It is, and it's a documented crisis. 22 National Guard adjutants general actually sent a formal letter to Congress explicitly warning them. They said the U.S. Air Force is the the oldest, smallest, and least ready in its 78-year history.
So the political narrative is projecting this, flawless, futuristic global dominance, while the actual operational reality on the ground is just struggling to keep half-century-old metal in the sky.
Exactly. And that gap between the rhetoric and the reality, it isn't just about the age of the planes. It extends to actively suppressing what happened to them during the conflict. The administration claimed that Iranian radar was, quote, 100% annihilated, and that coalition forces had complete control of Iranian skies. But the operational reality is that 3 F-15Es and an A-10 were lost.
Okay, we need to talk about how those losses were communicated to the public, because the level of narrative control here is intense. Take the March 1st and 2nd friendly fire incident.
Yeah, that's a big one.
CNTCOM initially released a statement blaming Kuwaiti air defenses for the loss of 3 U.S. F-15E Strike Eagles. Now, when you hear air defenses, you naturally assume a ground-based surface-to-air missile, right? Like an automated Patriot battery making some kind of tragic algorithmic mistake.
Right. That phrasing is absolutely designed to lead the public to exactly that assumption. It softens the blow. But civilian video footage that was taken by residents in Kuwait showed an F-15 spinning to the ground. Yeah. And it took that footage, combined with some reporting from a Wall Street Journal reporter, to reveal the actual mechanism of the loss. It wasn't a ground battery at all. A Kuwaiti FA-18 Hornet fighter jet shot down 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es within visual range.
That is just a staggering detail to omit. 3 jets shot down by an ally in a dogfight scenario, not some glitching ground computer.
Right.
And it's not the only piece of physical reality being heavily massaged either. The public narrative included these explicit assurances that Iran's nuclear capabilities were totally obliterated. But then we look at the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA.
Right, and Director Rafael Grossi confirmed that roughly 440.9 kilograms of 60% highly enriched uranium likely remains completely intact at Isfahan. So the obliterated claims are just demonstrably false on a physical, measurable level.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, you have a physical conflict characterized by aging fleets, suppressed friendly fire incidents, and entirely intact nuclear material. But all of it is being blanketed by this political narrative of flawless, unmitigated triumph. And that projected control isn't just for public morale, is it? It creates the exact market conditions needed for what happens next in the financial sector.
Exactly. This is where the digital footprints start telling a story that the political rhetoric simply cannot hide.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's get into the market microstructure analysis, because this is where the deep dive takes a wild turn. If you've ever wondered why your 401k or gas prices go absolutely haywire during a geopolitical crisis while some anonymous hedge fund makes a killing, this exact structural distance we are talking about is why. Take me to Monday morning, March 23, 2026.
Okay, so over that weekend, President Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum. He threatened to obliterate Iranian power plants if the Strait of Hormuz wasn't reopened.
Right.
So when the markets open on Monday morning, they're reacting exactly how fundamental logic dictates they should. Brent crude is trading over $100 a barrel. WTI is over $98. Oil has surged like 55% in just 4 weeks. Yeah, every quantitative model, every geopolitical signal, every bit of basic common sense screams by. Global oil supply is directly threatened, demand is static, so prices must go up.
Right. I mean, nobody in their right mind is betting that oil is going to get cheaper when the president is publicly threatening to bomb the power plants of a major global energy producer.
Nobody, except for one entity. At exactly 6:49 a.m. Eastern Time, someone does the exact opposite of what the entire world is doing. In the span of just 60 seconds, an entity sells roughly 6,200 oil futures contracts.
Oh, my God.
We're talking about a $580 million notional short position. They are betting massive amounts of money that the price of oil is about to crash.
And what happens next is just unbelievable, because exactly 15 minutes later, at 7:04 a.m.,
President Trump posts on Truth Social.
Yeah.
He announces very good and productive conversations with Iran, de-escalation, the threat is off, and instantly oil prices collapse by 10%. Whoever placed that massive short position at 6:49 a.m. makes anywhere between $50 million and $100 million in under an hour.
Wait, 15 minutes? Are you telling me they dumped $500 million in oil literally a quarter of an hour before the president tweeted a sudden de-escalation?
Yeah.
I mean, that is not a coincidence. That is a deadline. But how do professional financial forensic analysts look at, millions of trades happening globally and say, oh, That specific one right there is suspicious.
Well, professional traders and regulators look for what's called a change point anomaly.
Okay.
It's a pattern of behavior that simply shouldn't exist under normal baseline conditions. There's this core concept in academic finance called the revelation principle.
Right.
It basically states that if a trade's size, direction, and timing completely defy all available public information, then by definition, the trader must possess private information. I mean, no rational, publicly informed model says sell $500 million in oil during an active bombing threat.
Right. That makes total sense.
Okay.
But it wasn't just the direction of the trade that was a massive red flag. It was the physical mechanics of how they executed it. Let me see if I understand this part. Trying to sell 6,200 futures contracts in a 60-second window at 6:249 a.m. That's basically like me trying to sprint while pushing a massive overloaded shopping cart through a single tiny empty checkout lane at 4 a.m.
Oh,
right?
this, exactly.
I'm going to crash into the shelves, knock merchandise over, and just generally pay a heavy toll to get through. That represents thin market liquidity.
That is a perfect way to visualize thin market liquidity. At 6:49 a.m. on a Monday, the New York order book is incredibly thin. The big institutional energy desks haven't fully arrived for the day yet. There just aren't enough buyers waiting around to smoothly absorb a $580 million sell order.
Right.
So if you force 6,200 contracts through that empty checkout lane in 60 seconds, you cause catastrophic price slippage.
Meaning your own massive sell order pushes the price of oil down before you can even finish selling everything, so you end up getting a worse and worse price for your own contracts.
Yes.
You are essentially hurting your own profit margin.
Precisely. Which is why professional traders go out of their way to avoid knocking over the shelves, to use your analogy. Normally, if an institution wants to move that kind of volume, they use execution algorithms like TWAP, which stands for time-weighted average price, or VWAP, volume-weighted average price.
Okay.
Think of it as a sort of stealth mode. Instead of dropping a massive boulder into a calm pond and causing a huge splash that alerts everyone, the algorithms drop tiny pebbles into the pond over several hours to completely hide the impact.
So by choosing not to use stealth mode, by just dropping the boulder all at once, they were communicating something to the market structure.
Exactly. They communicated that speed mattered significantly more than cost. They accepted the massive penalty of slippage because they were working against a hard deadline. They knew that 7:04 a.m. Truth Social post was coming, and they had to be fully positioned before it went live.
Wow. So what does this all mean for the people actually involved? Could some, I don't know, rogue government official who heard a rumor in a hallway just open a retail brokerage app like Robinhood on their phone, swipe right, and short $500 million in oil?
No, absolutely not. And comparing institutional trading infrastructure to retail account capabilities is crucial to understanding how organized this whole thing was.
Okay.
A retail trader on an app does not have the plumbing required for this. This specific trade required direct market access, low latency algorithmic connectivity to the CME Globex and ICE exchanges, and, pre-established clearing relationships with major financial institutions.
But wait, did this entity actually need $580 million in cold hard cash sitting in an account to pull this off?
No, they didn't. And that is the underlying mechanics of futures contracts. Futures operate on margin.
Right?
Conceptually, think of margin like putting down a tiny down payment to control a massive mansion you never actually intend to live in. A futures contract only requires an initial margin of roughly 3% to 12%.
Oh.
Yeah, so to control $580 million worth of oil exposure, this entity only needed between $17 million and $70 million in upfront cash in their account.
Which is still a massive amount of money for a normal person, but easily accessible to a well-capitalized hedge fund or like a family office or a sophisticated proprietary trading firm.
Exactly. And they specifically chose a particular type of market infrastructure to execute this in. They used what practitioners call a no-name give-up market.
A no-name give-up.
Yeah. In exchange-traded futures, the central clearinghouse acts as a giant opaque middleman, so the seller never knows who the buyer is and vice versa. It is totally anonymous to other participants looking at the screen. In market structure terms, this is informed order flow seeking cover.
Mm-hmm.
You choose that specific financial vehicle because you deliberately want to remain a ghost.
Which brings us to the information gap, and this is where the puzzle pieces really lock together. If it takes this massive, highly sophisticated Wall Street infrastructure to place the trade, but the information obviously originated from inside a tight political or diplomatic circle in Washington, how do those two worlds connect?
That's where we have to look at the legal concepts of the tipper and the tippee.
Okay.
The tipper is the person who has the material, non-public information, in this case, someone with advanced knowledge of the president's de-escalation announcement. But as we just established, a government official doesn't just have a $70 million margin account and co-located algorithmic execution servers lying around.
Right, of course not.
The tippee is the external partner who possesses that heavy financial infrastructure and actually executes the trade.
So they absolutely need each other to pull this off. The official has the map, the trader has the car.
Exactly, and that structural distance is the most important finding in the source material. It proves this wasn't just a lucky rogue trader who guessed the market right. It was a highly organized system requiring a robust relationship, intense communication discipline, and immense trust between the person with the geopolitical information and the entity with the trading infrastructure.
And we know it's a system because they didn't just do it once. I mean, once is a lucky guess, twice is a pattern, 3 times is a system.
Right, let's evaluate institutional trading behaviors regarding abnormal market volatility. Normally, if an entity pulls off a highly suspicious trade of this magnitude and the entire world notices, standard behavior dictates they go completely to ground. They disappear to avoid regulators.
And the whole world definitely noticed. After that March 23rd trade, it was front-page global news. Nobel laureate Paul Krugman used the word treason in print. Senators were writing formal letters demanding investigations. The White House even had to issue internal memos reminding staff that insider trading is illegal. The heat was absolutely on.
And yet, completely defying standard evasive behavior, on April 7th, they did it again.
Unbelievable.
An even larger $950 million short positioned just hours before a 2-week ceasefire announcement. Oil fell 15%. Then 10 days later, on April 17th, they did it a third time. A $760 million short placed exactly 20 minutes before an unexpected announcement about reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
It's just staggering audacity. In all 3 cases, the public political rhetoric leading up to the trade was driving prices aggressively up. The public is panicking, paying higher prices at the pump, while the secret short positions are maximizing their profit right before the de-escalation announcement drops. The total exposure across those 3 trades was $2.29 billion.
Which raises an incredibly important structural question. Why would a financial entity keep doing this in plain sight at increasing scale, even after global regulators, senators, and the press publicly called it out? What is driving that kind of brazen institutional behavior?
I mean, the only logical answer is that they knew absolutely no one was coming to stop them.
Structurally, that appears to be the exact case. Let's look at the regulatory evisceration detailed in the sources. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, possesses the exact tools needed to find out who placed these trades.
Right.
Every single futures trade executed has a Tag 50 identifier. It's a digital fingerprint that traces the order back to the specific individual trader at the specific firm. The data exists.
So the CFTC has the fingerprints. Why not just pull the file and make the arrest?
Because the enforcement mechanism has been gutted. The CFTC's enforcement division lost 24% of its staff since January 2025.
Wow.
More critically, their Chicago office, which is historically the global center of futures market enforcement and surveillance, went from 20 enforcement lawyers down to 0.
0. So the burglar alarm is ringing loudly. The digital fingerprints are all over the vault, but the police station is completely empty.
But hold on, I find it really hard to believe that higher-ups in the financial system just missed a multi-billion-dollar anomaly. What about the Treasury? The Substack analysis treats the total silence from the president and from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent as a critical data point.
I have to push back on this a little bit. Are the sources suggesting this was deliberate negligence? Because Scott Bessent isn't just some random political appointee who doesn't understand the stock market.
Far from it. Scott Bessent is a former macro hedge fund manager. He ran Key Square Group. He spent years at Soros Fund Management.
Right.
He intimately understands order books, he understands informed order flow, and he absolutely understands a 6,200 lot pre-market dump with massive price slippage implies. His silence cannot be attributed to a lack of technical understanding. In market structure terms, when a highly sophisticated participant fails to react to information that should trigger a massive regulatory response, that absence of a reaction is itself a signal.
It implies they either genuinely didn't know, which is virtually impossible given the global media coverage and Senate letters, or they already knew everything they needed to know about who was doing it.
Exactly. It completes the loop of the structural disconnect we started with.
Wow. So, bringing this all together, we are looking at 2 totally different realities operating in parallel. intimately connected by the suppression of truth.
Mm.
In the physical world, we have a military actively suppressing the reality of 50-year-old planes, tragic friendly fire cover-ups, and a nuclear threat that was never actually neutralized, all to project a flawless political narrative of control. But that projected political narrative isn't just for show.
Right.
That exact same political rhetoric is used as a weapon to manipulate global markets, allowing a ghost-like institutional infrastructure to legally extract billions of dollars from the chaos.
It is a perfect closed system.
Yeah.
The narrative controls the physical perception, and the physical perception controls the financial extraction, which leaves us with a rather chilling reality to mull over.
Yeah.
We live in a highly digitized era where exchange order books leave a permanent, indestructible digital footprint everything we do. The data exists. The Tag 50 identifiers exist. We can see the exact seconds these trades were executed and the exact slippage they caused.
Right, it's all there in the open.
But all the data in the world doesn't matter if the institutions designed to read that data have had their eyes deliberately covered. It makes you wonder, in the modern world, is ultimate power the ability to hide your actions in the shadows? Or is it the ability to leave your actions in plain sight, on the permanent digital record, knowing absolutely no one has the capacity to stop you?